Hey there friends, it's Missy again. Thanks so much for stopping in today. I'm back with a new layout for Hip Kit Club and I'm using the 2020 June kits, and I'm going to be basing my layout on the July mood board, which is full of bright summer colors. So when I first started this layout, I thought that I might want to try to add in some of these black flowers on this stamp market paper, and so I just kind of started fussy cutting those out. And I wind up not even using them, so I'm going to wind up putting those aside. But I thought I might incorporate them at this point, so that's where I started. And also, I'm going to cut out some of those circles on that other stamp market paper and use those. And the circles actually help kind of start the design for my page. I'm going to use textured white cardstock as my background because I'm going to do some stamping on the background, and I really love how the stamps look on the textured cardstock versus the smooth cardstock, because I think that it adds to the interest of the design of how I'm going to do this. So this is clear gesso. I'm going to coat the whole thing because I wasn't sure how much I was going to add to it, and I actually used way too much gesso, so I'm going to scrape up the excess and put it back in the container. Here are the pictures I'm going to use, some cute little selfies of me and my youngest daughter, and I printed them in black and white because I think I had on a blue shirt and she had on her leopard print jacket, and the colors just were all over the place. And so I figured with all the colors I'm going to use on this layout that black and white would work perfectly. Okay, so before I start, oh, there's Paige. She's saying hi and giving me kisses. I thought that I would just start with some elements from papers that I thought I might want to use. So I fussy cut out this little piece here that says "Love These Days," and I thought that I might use it at the bottom because it's got a rainbow variety of colors. And here's where I try to use some of the black flowers, but since I use black and white photos, and there's actually quite a lot of black in the photos, the black flowers, I felt it was just too much. It just kind of darkened everything, so I kind of scrapped that idea, I think, at this point. Okay, so what I'm going to do for my background, I just decided to go for it. So I pulled out one of the 3 exclusive stamp sets that we get. This is the small one, and this circle stamp says "This is Life." And I wanted to mimic the colors in the mood board that you saw in the beginning. So I pulled out the 3 stamp or ink pads that we got last month, the red and the orange and the yellow, and I'm going to use those, and those are from the stamp market. And I'm also going to use 2 of the Prima Color Philosophy stackable ink pads that we got this month for June. I'm going to use the pink and the blue, and basically just go to stamping. And I've done this technique for the past few, gosh, I think I've done this on several layouts lately. I know I did it on my first layout for Hip Kit for the June kits with one of the house stamps. And I thought I would try it again with this circle. Since the bulk of the circle is the color, I thought that I would just stamp all these different colors, use my water brush to kind of activate some of the ink and let it just kind of run and spread and blend right into the next circle, and just see how it worked. And it actually worked out really great. All of the colors worked great together, and I was careful not to let the blue and the orange blend together because those are 2 colors that if they blend together it's just going to look muddy. But the blue ink was so light that it really didn't cause any problems if it hit the orange. And the good thing about using the gesso is if some colors ran together that I didn't like, I could just dab it up and start over. And everything's not just soaking right through the paper. That's what the gesso does. And you can see how as soon as water hits these inks, they easily start to liquefy, for lack of a better word, and start to run and blend together. And the gesso is what allows that. If you were to stamp these directly onto the cardstock with no gesso, then it's just going to be that stamp. And if you try to add water to it, it's probably just going to rip and tear the paper, and you're not going to get that nice spreading and bleeding of the color. So I'm just going to keep going, and yeah, I just wanted to cover the whole sheet with these different color circles because this was really fun to do. And I'm not really trying to make sure that every single circle says this is life. Like some of the circles are going to be blended out to where you can't even read what it says. And that's okay. Some of them you can, some of them you can't. And some of this time I stamp onto water that's already on the layout. And so you can't read what it says if I stamp it right onto a part that's wet. And that's okay. I wanted this to look imperfect, and that's why I like using the textured cardstock, because it just kind of adds to the texture. Because up close, you can see the texture of the cardstock through the colors, and I think that's awesome. You know, if you're a texture fan, then that's the way to go. So here's what I've got so far, and I love how this looks. And what I've been saying when I make these kinds of backgrounds is that it basically just looks like I left my page out in the rain, and it got wet and it made the colors bleed. And I think that's just the coolest effect. It's become my newest obsession, and I feel like I want to do this on every layout now. So once I got all this done and I started looking at it, I realized that the blue was just a little bit too light, and I wanted it to stand out a little more. So I wanted to add in some darker blues. So I went through my Lindy's stash of sprays that we've accumulated over the last 2 years maybe, and I pulled out the Tiffany Lou blue and the blue Hawaiian blue, and I just sprayed a little bit there on my desk, dabbing my water brush into it, and then just kind of adding that onto the blue sections. And I think that just kind of adds to the blue. And there's actually no blue on the mood board, but I couldn't help it. I just wanted to incorporate that in, and I think it makes all the difference once everything is done, because a lot of the papers and the embellishments that we get this month have light blue in them, and I didn't want to limit myself to you know, which embellishments that I could use to add things to around where the photos are going to go. So I wanted to make sure that I had the bulk of all the colors from everything in this page. So that's where we're going at this point. And I'm liking how this is looking. So here are my photos again, and I'm going to start to work on layering everything behind them. I've picked out 2 Pocket Life cards that I'm going to use. And then the more I looked at everything as far as embellishments and colors go, I realized that in the Pink Fresh Studio collection that we got a lot of in this month's kits, there is that darker royal blue color. And I felt like I needed that color on the background. So I pulled out a very old color that we got, I don't even remember how long, but it's from Shimmers, and it's called Frostbite. And I'm just going to kind of use that spray as a stamp and add it in. And I think that that color addition makes a huge difference. So that's what I'm going to do here. And you definitely can't read what the stamp says because it's liquid that I'm stamping with here. But this is just another option of something that you could do with the stamps. You know, if you have some of those Lindy's colors from months ago, you can still stamp with it. You know, it's just going to create a different look. It's not going to get, you know, you're not going to get a crisp image with your stamp. But I feel like that color really added a lot to the background. So I'm going to work on the photos again. I'm going to work in some white tissue paper here. This is just some tissue paper I have from my stash, and I like to use this sometimes, well, a lot of times, behind my pictures just to create a little bit of a subtle border behind everything, and it's going to help separate the photos from the background just a little bit more, and so I like to do that. And then I'm going to add them to those Pocket Life cards that I chose earlier. And I've got one that's kind of the red color, and then I've got one that's the light blue color. And these are all just colors that I've got on the background, and I'm going to try to incorporate embellishments that match all of those watery circles. And I'm going to distress the edges here by just running it through my edge distressor. And then I want the photos to be kind of overlapped, but kind of crooked, not perfectly straight. Okay, so if you look at this background, all those circles take up a big chunk of the design. And so my pictures are going to take up pretty much the rest of it. And so once I get all my layers done here, I'm only going to have so much space left for adding extra things. And I don't want to cover up a lot of the circles because I love that background and I love how that looks, and it's kind of busy. So I want to leave a lot of the lower portion of the layout white to give it some rest because it's so busy. I'm going to use a couple of the exclusive die cut tags as layers, and then I really like these two little die cuts that say "This Life," and I'm also going to use some of the Pink Fresh Studio die cuts. And here's where the little circles that I fussy cut in the very beginning are going to come into play. I wind up just using those as little pieces that I tuck in here and there. When I cut those, I wasn't even sure what I was going to do with them. But now that I've got all the circles up at the top, I wanted to incorporate the idea of the circles down at the bottom. So that's where those are going to come in. And there's a whole set of Pink Fresh Studio chipboard circle stickers. I'm going to use 1 or 2 of those and just sort of start tucking things in nice and close around and underneath the photos, because that's really the only spots that I have left to embellish. And like I said, I wanted to keep a lot of the white space white because your eye needs a resting spot when you look at this, because it's very colorful, it's very bright, it's very bold and busy. And yeah, you just need some space to rest, if that makes sense. Makes sense to me. And so yeah, I'm gonna just start to glue down some of these circles and kind of get those in place and continue to distress the edges of everything and get things attached. And I'm trying to make sure that I have, you know, all those colors in the top echoed in the bottom, the light blue, the dark blue, so on and so on. And just make sure all those colors are scattered around, because all of the circles up top are scattered around as far as the color separation goes. So I like to finish off my tags with cord or little bows or something to go through the holes at the end of the tag. So I pulled out some cord from my stash, and that's what I'm going to do there. And they look finished to me now. And then I'm going to keep on embellishing and working with some of the hearts, some more of the circles, and of course some thread. I've got, let's see, I've got pink, I've got the yellow, the dark blue. I think I have all the colors of the thread here, and I'm going to add in a couple of those in random places. And I'm just trying to put colors that, like I don't have any pink on the left lower side, so that's why I used pink thread right there. And I'm just trying to, like I said, separate all the colors around so they're evenly scattered across the page. And I'm liking how this is looking, so I'm going to keep working on the bottom area. I'm going to bring in some of the light blue colored thread. Since I've got pink on the left, I'm going to add the light blue over to the right because I don't have any light blue in that area. Again, just trying to scatter the colors evenly around the page. And I'm going to wind up moving the threads a little bit since nothing is really glued down. Here's the piece that I fussy cut earlier, and I wanted to put it at the bottom of the photos, but there are 2 extra colors. There's green and purple in those hearts, and I didn't want the green and purple to show. And I'm also going to use some of that bright yellow tissue paper that the kits came wrapped in. I don't know if you guys paid attention or saw that, but I did not throw that away because it is gorgeous. Last month we got the hot pink, and this month we got the yellow, and so I have got to use that on this page. And it's only a little bit, but I think it works, and I may use more of it next time because it's just so pretty. So now like I said, I'm going to kind of play with the threads and the placement because I wanted it to look a specific way. So I'm going to start to glue things down here, and I totally forgot to add adhesive foam behind my photos. Who am I? I do that on every single layout, and I just forgot. So my layouts are pretty flat here. Oh well, it happens. Things that I do on every layout sometimes just go out in one ear and out the other, and I totally forget to do it. But in the end, it doesn't really even matter because I have a lot of layers behind the photos, so it's fine. And I didn't really feel like I needed any extra dimension at this point because I feel like everything looks okay the way it is. And so I'm just going to go with it and start to glue and add everything down at the bottom again, get that all situated, and try to figure out if I wanted to continue on with my title or not. And I tried to add in some of those little multicolored alphas from Pink Fresh Studio, but I needed something small because I don't have a lot of space down there. So I just decided to try to add "is fun" So it would say, "This life is fun." But the more I looked at it, the more I didn't really like how it looked. It looked just kind of wonky and I don't know. And so I wind up removing that and trying something different. And I keep looking at it, and I like it. Let me use this little puffy sticker that says positive vibes. But the more I looked at it, the more I felt like I want to do something else. What else do I want? What does it need? What does it need? And the answer was stamping. I'm going to get brave and crazy and try to stamp directly onto this background. And it was kind of scary. So before I did it, I thought, let me stamp onto some scrap cardstock. And I'm going to use this one that says, "So happy we're together." And I thought, okay, just stamp it on this scrap cardstock, cut it out. And since it's going to be on this white area, just cut it out and use it as a die cut. That way it's not directly onto the background. But I didn't like where it was. So I'm going to wind up changing that. So this is a little teeny tiny stamp. So I added that, didn't feel too scary about that, but let's see if I can do this without messing up. What do you think? Can I do it? Dun, 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 dun. And yes, I was so pleased that I did not mess that up. And it was actually straight. Usually I have to have my T-square ruler to get anything straight, but I just went for it and it worked, and I was quite pleased that it worked out. I'm not done stamping. I was in a stamping mood. So I'm going to pull out another little stamp from that same stamp set. And this one says "Quality Time." And it's going to fit perfectly on top of that little yellow circle. There's some open space above the line in that little yellow circle. And so I stamped that directly onto that. And then I'm going to get really bold. And I thought, okay, this is either going to make it or break it. This big, chunky, blocky memories word. I thought, do I really want to stamp that onto the circles or not? I finally just decided to go for it. And I'm using StazOn ink here, so we're going to just do it and hope for the best. So I push and I push and I push, press, and it works out. Now, it's not perfect. On the RIES, it's a little bit lighter because this is textured cardstock, but I think it looks cool. It looks a little bit textured, it looks a little bit distressed, and I like it. And I think in the end, it's gonna look okay. We're almost done with this. So I'm gonna add my journaling lines very close to the bottom there because I don't have anywhere else to do it, you know? Everything else, the space is pretty much used up. And so I just added what I could down here at the bottom, and then there's the final layout. I added the date above the memories stamp. And I really like how this turned out. I think it's fun. I like the stamping technique. It's one of my favorite things to do now. And here you can see how some of the circles you can read, "This is life," and some of them it ran together. But I think that looks cool. And you can see the texture from the cardstock underneath it, all the thread and the dimension of all the layers, the edge distressing, and the stamping turned out pretty cool, I think. Like I said, I don't expect it to look perfect on a textured cardstock. And so I like the fact that it doesn't look perfectly crisp. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope you like this technique. I hope you'll give it a try with the stamps because it's really easy to do. It looks complicated, but it's not. If you can stamp and squirt water, you can do that, you know. It just takes patience because it is a little messy, but it's fun. And I hope you guys have a great week. Check out the mood board. I hope it inspires you. And I will see you in my next video. Thank you so much for watching.